The clock on the wall showed 10:47 p.m. when Maria pushed open the heavy brass doors of the Riverside Symphony Hall. Her shoulders ached from the long day. She had already cleaned 2 office buildings before coming here, but this job was different. This place felt special, even if she was just here to mop floors and empty trash bins. The lobby was quiet now. Just 3 hours ago, this same space had been packed with people in fancy clothes, chatting and laughing, holding glasses of wine. Maria had watched them through the small window in the service hallway during her dinner break. She had eaten her homemade sandwich while listening to the muffled sound of piano music drifting through the walls. Beautiful music. The kind that made her chest feel tight. She grabbed her cleaning cart from the storage room and wheeled it toward the main auditorium. The wheels squeaked a little on the polished marble floor. That sound used to bother her when she first started working here 10 years ago. Now it was just part of the routine. Push the cart. Clean the seats. Vacuum the carpets. Lock up, go home. Wake up, do it all again. Maria was 58 years old and her hands showed it. Years of scrubbing and cleaning had left them rough and red. But they were strong hands. Good hands. Hands that had raised 3 children by herself after her husband passed away. Hands that had worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. The auditorium doors opened with a soft whoosh. Maria paused at the entrance like she always did. No matter how many times she cleaned this room, it still took her breath away. The ceiling soared high above, painted with angels and clouds. Red velvet seats spread out in perfect rows, over 2,000 of them. And at the center of it all, on the stage under a single spotlight that someone had forgotten to turn off, sat the piano. It was a Steinway. Maria knew this because she had looked it up once on her phone. It was worth more money than she would make in 5 years, maybe 10. The black surface gleamed like a mirror. Even from where she stood at the back of the hall, she could see how beautiful it was. She started her work, moving down the aisles with her spray bottle and cloth. People always left things behind. Tonight she found 2 programs, a lipstick, and someone's reading glasses. She collected them all in her lost and found bag. The theater manager would deal with them tomorrow. As she worked, Maria hummed quietly to herself. The tune was something she remembered from a long time ago. So long ago it felt like a different life. A life where a young girl with calloused fingers from practice sat at a piano for hours every day, dreaming of concert halls just like this one. That girl had been good. Really good. Good enough to win a scholarship to the National Conservatory of Music when she was just 17 years old. Her teacher had cried when she told her the news. "You're going to be somebody," her teacher had said, hugging her tight. "You're going to play on the biggest stages in the world." But life had other plans. 2 months before she was supposed to start at the conservatory, Maria's father had a stroke. The medical bills piled up fast. Her mother worked at a laundry, but it wasn't enough. They needed money, and they needed it now. The scholarship covered tuition, but not living expenses. Not food or rent or bus fare. Maria had 3 younger brothers who needed to eat, so she made a choice. She got a job at a restaurant instead, then another job at a grocery store. The acceptance letter from the conservatory went into a drawer. Eventually, she stopped taking it out to look at it. Eventually, she stopped playing piano altogether. It hurt too much to touch the keys knowing she would never get to chase that dream. That was 35 years ago. Maria had gotten married, had children, lost her husband to cancer, raised those children alone, and watched them grow up and move away. Life had been hard, but she had survived it. She had done what needed to be done. But sometimes, late at night in empty concert halls like this one, the old dreams came back. They whispered to her while she wiped down armrests and picked up dropped candy wrappers. What if things had been different? What if she had gone to that school? What if her fingers still remembered how to make music? Maria finished cleaning the main seating area and pushed her cart down the aisle toward the stage. She would need to sweep up there and make sure everything was tidy for tomorrow's rehearsal. Another pianist was coming. Someone famous from Europe, according to the poster in the lobby. She climbed the 3 steps onto the stage and stood there for a moment. The view was incredible from up here. All those empty seats spreading out like a red sea. The balcony looming above. The crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. And right behind her, close enough to touch, was the piano. Maria turned around slowly. Her heart was beating faster now. She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't. There were rules about this sort of thing. The instruments were expensive. Only professional musicians were supposed to touch them. She was just the cleaning lady, but the hall was empty, completely empty. The security guard was doing his rounds on the other side of the building. The theater manager had gone home hours ago. No one would know. Just for a minute. Just to see if her hands still remembered. Maria set down her spray bottle and walked to the piano bench. It was plush and comfortable, covered in black leather. She sat down carefully, her cleaning uniform crinkling. The piano loomed in front of her, huge and perfect. Up close, she could see her own reflection in the polished surface. She looked old. When had she gotten so old? The girl who had dreamed of concert halls had smooth skin and bright eyes full of hope. This woman looking back at her had gray streaks in her hair and tired lines around her mouth. But her hands. Maria held up her hands and looked at them in the dim light. They were older too, rougher, marked by years of hard work. But the fingers were the same fingers. Long and strong. Pianist fingers, her old teacher used to say. Maria reached out and let her fingers rest gently on the keys. They were cool and smooth under her touch. The ivory felt like coming home. Her heart was hammering now. Her mouth was dry, just one note. That was all. Just to hear it. She pressed down gently on middle C. The sound rang out in the empty hall, pure and clear and achingly beautiful. It echoed off the walls and ceiling and came back to her like a voice from the past. Then her hands started to move on their own. One note became two. Two became four. Before she knew what she was doing, Maria was playing. Her fingers found the keys like they had never left. A scale, then an arpeggio, then the opening bars of a piece she had learned when she was 16 years old. The music filled the empty hall. It filled her chest. It filled all the empty spaces inside her that she had learned to ignore over the years. For the first time in 35 years, Maria was playing piano again. And she had completely forgotten that she wasn't alone. Maria's eyes were closed now. She wasn't in the concert hall anymore. She was 17 again, sitting in her childhood bedroom with the old upright piano her grandmother had left them. The keys had been yellow with age and some of them stuck, but it didn't matter. When Maria played, that piano sang. Her fingers moved faster across the Steinway. This piece was complicated, really complicated. It had taken her 6 months to learn it all those years ago. Her teacher had said it was too advanced for her, but Maria had been stubborn. She practiced until her fingers cramped. She practiced until her mother had to call her 3 times for dinner. She practiced until the notes stopped being individual sounds and became something bigger, something that made people stop and listen. And now, decades later, her hands still knew every note, every pause, every subtle change in volume. It was like the music had been sleeping inside her all this time, just waiting to wake up. The melody soared through the empty hall, loud then soft, fast then slow. Her right hand danced over the high notes while her left hand provided the deep, rich foundation. She swayed slightly as she played, her whole body moving with the music. Tears started running down her cheeks, but she didn't stop to wipe them away. This was who she was supposed to be. This was the life she was supposed to have lived. For just these few minutes, she wasn't the cleaning lady with the tired eyes and the aching back. She was a musician, an artist. Someone who could make beauty out of nothing but 88 black and white keys. The final section was coming. The most difficult part, Maria's hands flew across the keyboard, hitting notes so fast they almost blurred together. Her heart was racing. She felt alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. The music built and built, getting louder and more intense, climbing toward the final resolution. And then with one last powerful chord, it was over. The sound faded slowly, echoing through the hall, bouncing off the high ceiling and the walls before finally disappearing into silence. Maria sat perfectly still, her hands still resting on the keys, her eyes still closed. She was breathing hard like she had just run a race. For a moment, everything was quiet, perfectly, completely quiet. Then someone started clapping. Maria's eyes flew open. Her blood went cold. She spun around on the bench so fast she almost fell off. A man was standing in the shadows near the side of the stage. He was tall and slim, wearing dark pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. As he stepped forward into the light, Maria's stomach dropped. She recognized him immediately. His face had been on the poster in the lobby. His picture was in the program she had found between the seats. It was him, the famous pianist who had performed tonight. The one who had filled every seat in this massive hall, the one whose music people paid hundreds of dollars to hear, and he had just watched her, the cleaning lady, play his piano without permission. Maria jumped up from the bench like it had burned her. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice shaking. "I shouldn't have touched it. I know I shouldn't have. Please don't tell the manager. I need this job. I promise it won't happen again." She was already backing away, looking for her cleaning cart, planning her escape. She would be fired for sure. Maybe he would even call the police. Do they arrest people for touching expensive pianos? Her mind was racing with worst-case scenarios, but the man held up both hands, palms out. "Wait," he said. His voice was gentle, kind even. "Please wait. Don't go." Maria froze. She was still ready to run, but something in his tone made her pause. He walked closer, his footsteps soft on the wooden stage. Now that he was in the light, she could see his face clearly. He looked younger in person than in his pictures. Maybe 40, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes that were studying her with intense curiosity. "That was extraordinary," he said quietly. "Truly extraordinary. I've been playing piano for 30 years. I've heard the best pianists in the world. And what you just played..." He shook his head, seeming almost unable to find the words. "That was something special." Maria stared at him. Was this some kind of joke? Was he being sarcastic? But his face looked serious, almost moved. "Who are you?" he asked. "Where did you study?" Maria's mouth opened and closed. She couldn't seem to form words. Finally, she managed to say, "I'm nobody. I clean here. I clean the hall." He took another step closer. "You're not just anything. Nobody who plays like that is just anything. Please tell me. Where did you learn to play?" Something about the way he asked, the genuine interest in his voice, made Maria's defenses crack just a little. She swallowed hard. "A long time ago. When I was young. I had a teacher. A good teacher. But that was a very long time ago." "How long?" he pressed. 35 years. The words came out as barely a whisper. "I haven't played in 35 years. His eyebrows shot up. 35 years? That's impossible. No one plays like that after not touching a piano for 35 years. That's not how it works." Maria felt a small flare of defensive pride. "I practiced a lot. When I was young, my teacher said I had a gift." Then she caught herself and looked down at her shoes. "But it doesn't matter now. That was a different life." "What happened?" he asked. Then, seeing her hesitation, he added, "I'm sorry. You don't have to answer that, but may I ask your name at least?" "Maria. My name is Maria. Maria." He repeated it like he was committing it to memory. "I'm David. David Chen." He held out his hand. Maria looked at his hand for a moment before shaking it. His grip was firm but gentle. The hands of a pianist, like hers used to be before years of cleaning solutions and rough work changed them. "Maria, what you just played, that was the Rachmaninoff Prelude in G minor, one of the most technically demanding pieces in the classical repertoire. You played it perfectly, not just correctly, perfectly, with feeling, with understanding. That doesn't happen by accident." Maria felt her cheeks getting hot. She wasn't used to compliments, especially not from someone like him. "I used to love that piece. When I was preparing for..." She stopped herself. "Preparing for what?" She sighed. There was no point in hiding it now. "I had a scholarship to the National Conservatory. I was supposed to start when I was 17. Supposed to? Life happened. My father got sick. My family needed money. I had to work instead." She said it simply, without emotion. It was just a fact. Just the way things had turned out. David was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was soft. "I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly difficult." Maria shrugged. "A lot of people have difficult lives. I did what I had to do. I have 3 kids, good kids. They all went to college. They have good jobs now. I'm proud of them." "You should be proud of them," David said. "But Maria, can I tell you something? You should also be proud of yourself. What you just played, that's a gift. A real gift. And gifts like that don't just disappear." Maria felt tears threatening again. She blinked them back hard. "It's too late now. I'm 58 years old. I clean buildings for a living. That's my life." David looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled his phone out of his pocket. "Would you do something for me? Would you play again? Just one more piece. Any piece you want. And let me record it." Maria's eyes went wide. "What? No way. Why would you want to do that?" "Because what you have is rare," he said simply. "And because I think the world should hear it." Maria laughed, but it came out bitter. The world? The world doesn't care about cleaning ladies who play piano. David smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something knowing in it. Something that suggested he understood things she didn't. You might be surprised, he said. You might be very surprised indeed. Maria stared at the phone in David's hand like it was a dangerous animal. I can't, she said, shaking her head. What if I get in trouble? What if the manager sees it? I could lose my job. David lowered the phone slightly. I understand, I do. But Maria, I promise you won't get in trouble. If anyone has an issue, they can talk to me. I performed here tonight. I have a relationship with this venue. They won't fire you because I asked you to play their piano. You don't know that, Maria said, but her voice was less certain now. I do know that, David replied firmly. And besides, I won't post it anywhere without your permission. This would just be for me, so I can remember what I heard tonight. Because honestly, I'm not sure I'll believe it myself tomorrow morning. Maria looked back at the piano. The bench was still pulled out, waiting. Part of her wanted to run away, to grab her cart and finish her cleaning and forget this whole strange night ever happened. But another part of her, a part she thought had died a long time ago, was whispering something different. When would she ever get another chance like this? When would she ever sit at a piano this beautiful again? When would she ever have someone actually want to hear her play?
One song, she heard herself say.
Just one. And you can't show it to anyone without asking me first. David's face lit up. I promise, one song. You pick. Maria walked back to the piano slowly. Her legs felt shaky. She sat down on the bench again and placed her hands on the keys. They were warmer now from her earlier playing. What should she play? Something simple? Something safe? No. If she was going to do this, she might as well play what was in her heart. She closed her eyes and began to play Chopin, a nocturne, one of the sad ones. The melody was haunting and beautiful, full of longing and loss. It was the kind of music that made you think about all the things you had loved and lost in your life. All the dreams that had slipped away. All the roads you didn't get to travel. As she played, Maria thought about her daughter Rosa. Rosa was 32 now, a nurse in California. She had 3 kids of her own. Maria's grandchildren, beautiful children with bright futures. Rosa called every Sunday and always asked if Maria was taking care of herself, if she was eating enough, if she was getting rest. What would Rosa think if she could see her mother now? Playing piano in a grand concert hall with a famous musician watching? Rosa knew her mother had played when she was young, but Maria had never talked much about it. It had hurt too much to remember. She thought about her son Carlos, who was an engineer in Texas. Smart boy. Always had been. He had offered many times to send Maria money so she wouldn't have to work so hard, but she always refused. She had raised her children to stand on their own feet. She would do the same, and little Miguel, well, he wasn't little anymore. He was 28, the baby of the family. He still lived in the city, close enough to visit. He came by sometimes with groceries and would stay for dinner. He would sit at her tiny kitchen table and tell her about his job at the tech company and his girlfriend who wanted to get married. Her children had good lives. That was what mattered. That was what all those years of work had been for. So what if Maria's own dreams had died? Her children's dreams had lived. That was enough. It had to be enough. The music swelled, reaching the emotional heart of the piece. Maria's fingers pressed harder into the keys, drawing out every bit of feeling. A tear rolled down her cheek, then another. She didn't try to stop them this time. When the final notes faded away, she sat in silence for a moment, her hands still resting on the keys. Then she opened her eyes and looked at David. He had moved closer while she was playing and was now standing just a few feet away. His phone was pointed at her, still recording, and his eyes were wet. He lowered the phone slowly. That was... His voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. That was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. Maria stood up from the bench and wiped her face with the back of her hand. She felt raw, exposed, like she had just shown this stranger something deeply private. Can I see it? She asked quietly. David nodded and turned the phone around. He pressed play. Maria watched herself on the small screen, sitting at the grand piano in her cleaning uniform. She watched her own hands move across the keys. She heard the music pour out. And for the first time, she saw what David had seen. Not a tired cleaning lady. A musician. A real musician. I look old, she said softly. You look like someone who has lived, David replied. Someone who has experienced loss and pain and kept going anyway. That's what makes the music so powerful. You're not just playing notes, you're playing life. Maria didn't know what to say to that. She handed the phone back to him. Okay, you have your video. Now I really need to finish my work. The manager gets here at 6 in the morning and this place needs to be clean. Wait. David touched her arm gently. Can I ask you something? Do you ever play anymore? Do you have a piano at home? Maria laughed, but there was no humor in it. A piano? In my apartment? Do you know how much a piano costs? Even a cheap one? She shook her head. No, I don't play. Tonight was the first time in 35 years, and it will probably be the last time for another 35 years. David frowned. He looked troubled by this, like it personally bothered him. That's not right, he said. Talent like yours, it shouldn't just disappear. It shouldn't be wasted. It's not wasted, Maria said more sharply than she intended. It's just life. Not everyone gets to do what they love. Most people don't, actually. You're lucky. You get to play music for a living. Most of us have to do other things, harder things. That's just how the world works. But what if it didn't have to be that way? David asked. What if there was a chance for things to be different? Maria picked up her spray bottle from where she had left it near the piano. There isn't. I'm almost 60 years old. I have bills to pay. I have rent due next week. I can't afford fairy tales. She started walking toward her cart. Thank you for being kind. Thank you for listening. But I need to get back to reality now. Maria, please, just listen for a minute. She stopped but didn't turn around. I want to post this video, David said. On my social media, I have a lot of followers, people who love music, people who appreciate talent when they see it. I think they would love this. I think they would love you. Now Maria did turn around. Why would you do that? What would be the point? Because sometimes the world needs to be reminded that extraordinary people are everywhere, David said. Working regular jobs, living quiet lives, and sometimes those people deserve to be seen, to be celebrated. Maria felt a flutter of something in her chest. Hope? Fear? She couldn't tell. And what happens after people see the video? Nothing changes. I still have to come here tomorrow night and clean. I still have to work. Maybe, David said. Or maybe something else happens. Maybe opportunities come along that you can't even imagine right now. But we won't know unless we try. Maria looked at him for a long moment. This man she had just met. This famous pianist who had no reason to care about a cleaning lady. But he seemed sincere. He seemed like he actually believed what he was saying. What do I have to do? She asked finally. David smiled. Just say yes. Let me share your gift with the world. Let me show people what I heard tonight. That's all. Maria thought about her children. She thought about her tiny apartment with its broken heater and leaky faucet. She thought about her aching back and her tired eyes and all the years she had left before she could retire. If she had anything left in her at all, and then she thought about how it felt to sit at that piano, how it felt to play music again after all these years, how it felt to be, just for a few minutes, the person she was supposed to be. Okay, she said quietly. Yes, you can post it. David's smile grew wider. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. I promise you won't regret this. Maria wasn't so sure about that. But as she watched David type on his phone, writing something to go with the video, she felt that flutter again. That tiny spark of something she hadn't felt in decades. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late after all. Maria didn't sleep much that night. She kept thinking about the video, about David posting it somewhere on the internet where anyone could see it. What if people laughed at her? What if they said cruel things? The internet could be a mean place. She had heard stories. But it was too late now. She had said yes. What was done was done. She went to work the next morning at the office building like always. Vacuumed the hallways, cleaned the bathrooms, emptied the trash. Her phone stayed in her locker. She didn't check it during her shift. She was almost afraid to look. It wasn't until her lunch break that she finally pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking a little as she unlocked the screen. She had 3 missed calls from Rosa, 7 text messages from Carlos, 12 from Miguel. That was strange. Her kids usually texted once or twice a day, if that. She opened Rosa's messages first. "Mom, call me right now." "Mom, why aren't you answering?" "I can't believe you didn't tell us you could play piano like that. You're going viral, Mom. Do you know what that means?" Maria's heart started beating faster. Viral? What did that mean exactly? She knew it was something about the internet, about things spreading fast, but she didn't really understand how it worked. She called Rosa back with trembling fingers. Rosa picked up on the first ring. "Mom!" "Oh, my God, finally. Have you seen it? Have you seen the video?" "What video? Slow down, mija. What are you talking about?" "The piano video. David Chen posted a video of you playing piano last night and it's everywhere. It has like 15 million views already." Maria almost dropped her phone. 15 what? Million, Mom. Million. People all over the world are watching you play. They're sharing it. Famous musicians are commenting on it. News websites are writing articles about you. Mom, you're famous. Maria sat down hard on the bench in the break room. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of mistake. "Rosa, that's impossible. He only posted it last night. How could 15 million people see it already?" "That's how the internet works, Mom. When something is really good, really special, it spreads like crazy. And what you played, Mom, it's beautiful. I'm crying watching it. Why didn't you ever tell us you could play like that?" I didn't think it mattered anymore," Maria said quietly. "That was so long ago." "It matters, Mom. It really matters. Hold on. I'm sending you the link. You need to see this." A moment later, Maria's phone buzzed with a message. She clicked on the link with shaking hands. It opened a video on some social media site she had heard of but never used. And there she was, sitting at the grand piano in her blue cleaning uniform, her gray-streaked hair pulled back in a ponytail, her work boots barely reaching the pedals. Playing Chopin. The caption above the video said, "Last night I returned to the concert hall to get my phone. Instead, I found magic. This is Maria. She cleans the venue where I performed. She hasn't played piano in 35 years. She had a scholarship to the National Conservatory but had to give it up to support her family. Listen to this and try not to cry. Real talent never dies." Below the video were thousands and thousands of comments. Maria scrolled through them, her eyes getting wider with each one. "This brought me to tears. What a gift. This is the most beautiful thing I've heard all year. Someone please give this woman a record deal. I'm a professional pianist and she's better than half the people I went to school with. This is what pure emotion sounds like." Her story broke my heart. She gave up everything for her family. The comments went on and on. Some were in languages she didn't even recognize. People from all over the world, all saying kind things, beautiful things, things that made her own eyes fill with tears. "Rosa," she whispered into the phone. "Rosa, I don't understand. Why do they care?" "Because you're amazing, Mom," Rosa said, and Maria could hear that she was crying too. "Because people can see how special you are. We always knew it, but now everyone else knows it too." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Maria tried to keep working, but her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. More calls, more messages. Miguel texted that he was coming over after work. Carlos called from Texas and talked for an hour about how proud he was. Friends she hadn't spoken to in years were messaging her, saying they had seen the video. By the time Maria got home that evening, she felt like she was in a dream. A strange, impossible dream that she might wake up from at any moment. Miguel showed up at 6 with Chinese food and his laptop. "Okay, Mom," he said, setting everything up on her small kitchen table. "You need to see what's happening. This is bigger than you think." He showed her news articles. Big news websites were covering the story. Cleaning lady's hidden talent stuns the world. The pianist who almost was. One woman's heartbreaking story of sacrifice. Viral video proves it's never too late for second chances. He showed her videos of other musicians reacting to her playing. Famous people, people she had heard of. They were all saying the same things. That she was incredible. That her technique was flawless. That the emotion in her playing was rare and precious. "Mom, look at this one," Miguel said, clicking on another video. It was a young woman, maybe 25, sitting at her own piano. "This woman says you inspired her to start playing again after she quit 5 years ago. She's not the only one. Hundreds of people are posting videos saying you motivated them to pick up music again." Maria put her hand over her mouth. She had inspired people? Her? The cleaning lady who just happened to play one song? Her phone rang again. An unknown number. Miguel looked at it and his eyes went wide. "Mom, that's a New York area code." "You should answer it," Maria picked up nervously. "Hello? Hello, is this Maria Gonzalez?" The voice was professional, friendly. "My name is Patricia Kim. I'm calling from the Juilliard School of Music. We've seen your video, and we'd like to talk to you about some opportunities we might be able to offer." Maria looked at Miguel. He was watching her with huge eyes like he knew something big was happening. "Opportunities?" Maria repeated. "Yes. We have a special program for mature students who show exceptional talent. We'd love to discuss whether you might be interested in completing your musical education. We know you had to leave the National Conservatory. We'd like to offer you a chance to finish what you started." Maria couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up completely. Juilliard, the most famous music school in America, maybe in the world. And they were calling her. "Offering her a chance, Mrs. Gonzalez. Are you still there?" "I'm here," Maria managed to say. I'm 58 years old. I clean buildings. I can't afford—" "We'd like to offer you a full scholarship," Patricia said gently. "Room and board included. We've already had several donors reach out after seeing your video. They want to sponsor your education. You wouldn't have to pay anything." Miguel was gripping her arm now, his face full of excitement and tears. Maria could barely breathe. "But what about my job, my rent? I have bills." We can discuss all of that," Patricia said. "We know this is a big decision. We're not asking you to decide right now. We'd just like to meet with you. Talk about possibilities. Would you be willing to come to New York for a visit? We'd cover all your travel expenses, of course." Maria closed her eyes. 24 hours ago, she had been cleaning theaters and going home to her empty apartment. Now someone from Juilliard was asking her to come to New York, offering her a scholarship, offering her a second chance at the dream she had buried 35 years ago. "Yes," she heard herself say. "Yes, I'll come." After she hung up, she sat in stunned silence. Miguel was hugging her, laughing and crying at the same time. Her phone was still buzzing with notifications. The smell of Chinese food filled her small kitchen, and somewhere in New York, at one of the most prestigious music schools in the world, people were talking about her. Maria Gonzalez, the cleaning lady who could play piano like an angel. "Mom," Miguel said, pulling back to look at her face. "Your life is about to change. You know that, right?" Maria looked around her tiny apartment. At the cracked ceiling and the old furniture and the photograph of her late husband on the wall. She thought about the concert hall where she had played last night. She thought about David Chen and his phone camera and one simple video that had somehow reached 15 million people. "I think it already has," she said softly. "I think it already has." 3 weeks later, Maria stood in front of a mirror in a hotel room in Manhattan. She barely recognized herself. Rosa had taken her shopping the week before, insisting she needed something nice to wear. The dark blue dress was simple but elegant. Her daughter had also convinced her to get her hair done. It was still gray, but now it was styled in a way that made her look sophisticated instead of tired. "You look beautiful, Mom," Rosa said from behind her. She had flown in from California for this. All 3 of Maria's children were here, actually. They wouldn't have missed it for anything. Tonight was the concert. The benefit concert that David Chen had organized. Maria was going to play on stage at Carnegie Hall. She still couldn't quite believe it was real. The last 3 weeks had been a whirlwind. The video had reached over 50 million views now. News crews had shown up at her apartment building. Talk shows had called. A piano company had delivered a beautiful upright piano to her home, free of charge so she could practice. Maria had cried when they brought it in. She had played it every single day since. She had visited Juilliard. met with professors, seen the practice rooms and the performance halls. They wanted her to start in the fall semester, a full scholarship. At 58 years old, she was going back to school. It felt impossible and terrifying and wonderful all at once. But tonight was about something else. Tonight was about playing for people again, really playing. Not in an empty concert hall late at night when no one was watching, but in front of thousands of people who had bought tickets just to hear her. The concert was a fundraiser for music education programs in low-income schools. David had organized the whole thing. He was performing too, along with several other famous musicians. But somehow Maria was the headliner. Her name was on the posters. People were coming to see her. "Mom, are you okay?" Miguel asked, poking his head into the room. "You look a little pale." "I'm terrified," Maria admitted. "What if I mess up? What if I forget the notes? What if everyone realizes this was all a mistake and I'm just a cleaning lady who got lucky one time?" Carlos came in and put his arm around her shoulders. "Mom, you've been practicing for 3 weeks straight. You sound incredible, better than incredible. And you're not just a cleaning lady. You never were. You're a pianist. You've always been a pianist. The world just didn't know it yet." There was a knock at the door. Miguel opened it to find David standing there in a tuxedo. He smiled when he saw Maria. "You look wonderful," he said. "Are you ready?" "No," Maria said honestly. "But I don't think I'll ever be ready, so I might as well do it anyway." David laughed. "That's the spirit, come on. I'll walk you backstage." Maria hugged each of her children, then followed David out into the hallway. The hotel was connected to Carnegie Hall through a back entrance. As they walked through the corridors, Maria could hear the murmur of the crowd. The theater was filling up. "David," she said suddenly, "thank you. For everything. For posting that video. For believing in me. For making all this happen." He stopped and turned to face her. "Maria, I didn't make anything happen. You did. All I did was show people what was already there. The talent. The passion. The music. That was all you." They reached the backstage area. Other performers were warming up, doing vocal exercises, running through scales. Maria found a quiet corner and sat down at a practice piano. She played a few gentle scales, letting her fingers remember the feel of the keys. This piano was nice, but it wasn't the one she would play on stage. That one was a Steinway concert grand, the same model used by the greatest pianists in the world. A stage manager with a headset approached her. "Ms. Gonzalez, you're on in 15 minutes. Mr. Chen will introduce you." 15 minutes. Maria's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then another. She thought about her grandmother, who had left her that old yellow-keyed piano so many years ago. She thought about her father, who used to sit and listen to her practice even when he was tired from work. She thought about her late husband, who had always told her she had magic in her fingers. They were all gone now, but in a way they would be with her tonight. Every person who had ever believed in her, every sacrifice she had made, every dream she had buried, it was all leading to this moment. 5 minutes, Ms. Gonzalez. Maria stood up. She smoothed down her dress. She walked to the edge of the stage and peeked out through the curtain. The theater was packed. Every seat filled. People were still finding their places, chatting excitedly. In the front row, she could see her children sitting together. Rosa was holding Miguel's hand. Carlos had his phone out, probably ready to record everything. David appeared beside her. "I'm going to go out and introduce you now. When you hear the applause, that's your cue. Walk to the piano. Take your time. Bow if you want to. Then sit down and do what you do best. Just play. Forget about the audience. Forget about the cameras. Just play." He squeezed her shoulder and walked out onto the stage. The crowd erupted in applause. Maria heard David's voice through the speakers, talking about the importance of music education, thanking everyone for coming. Then his tone changed, became more personal. 3 weeks ago, he said, "I forgot my phone at the Riverside Symphony Hall. I went back late at night to get it, and I heard something that changed my life. I heard a woman playing piano in an empty theater. A woman who worked as a cleaning lady. A woman who hadn't played in 35 years because life had demanded other things from her. And what I heard that night was nothing short of miraculous." The audience was silent now, hanging on every word. "Tonight, I want to introduce you to that woman. Her name is Maria Gonzalez. She gave up a scholarship to one of the finest music schools in this country to take care of her family. She worked multiple jobs. She raised 3 beautiful children alone after her husband passed away. She never complained. She never stopped working. And she never stopped being a musician even when she couldn't touch a piano. Maria felt tears streaming down her face. "Ladies and gentlemen," David said, his voice thick with emotion, "please welcome to the Carnegie Hall stage, for her very first public performance in over 3 decades, the extraordinary Maria Gonzalez." The applause was deafening. Maria took one more deep breath, wiped her eyes, and stepped out onto the stage. The lights were bright. The crowd was a sea of faces. For a moment she froze, overwhelmed by it all. Then she saw her children in the front row. Rosa was crying. Carlos was on his feet, clapping so hard his hands must have hurt. Miguel was whistling and cheering. Maria walked to the piano. She turned to the audience and bowed just slightly. The applause grew even louder. Then she sat down on the bench, adjusted her position, placed her hands on the keys. The theater fell silent. Maria closed her eyes, and she began to play. The music poured out of her like water from a spring. She played Rachmaninoff, the same piece she had played that night in the empty theater. But this time it was different. This time she wasn't playing for herself. She was playing for her children, for her late husband, for her parents, for everyone who had ever sacrificed something important because life demanded it. She was playing for every person who had ever had a dream and had to let it go. Every person who worked jobs they didn't love to support the people they did love. Every person who wondered if it was too late to start over. Her fingers flew across the keys. The music swelled and dipped and soared. She could feel every note in her chest, in her bones, in her soul. This was who she was meant to be. This was what she was born to do. When the final chord rang out and faded into silence, Maria opened her eyes. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the entire theater exploded. People were on their feet, cheering and crying. The applause went on and on. Maria stood and bowed, tears streaming freely down her face now. She looked at her children. They were sobbing and clapping and so full of pride she could feel it from the stage. She looked at David in the wings, who was wiping his own eyes. She looked at all these people, thousands of strangers who had come to hear her play. And Maria understood something in that moment. It wasn't too late. It had never been too late. All those years of waiting, of working, of putting her dreams aside, they hadn't been wasted. They had been preparation. They had given her something to say through the music. They had given her a story worth telling. She was 58 years old. She was starting over. And she was finally home. As Maria walked off the stage, still hearing the applause behind her, she thought about that night 3 weeks ago. The night she had stayed late in an empty concert hall. The night she had touched those piano keys and remembered who she used to be. Sometimes one moment can change everything. Sometimes it's never too late. Sometimes the world is just waiting for you to be brave enough to show it who you really are. Maria had been a cleaning lady. Now she was a pianist. But the truth was, she had always been both. She had always been exactly who she was meant to be. The world just needed a little time to catch up.